Continuing with rule number 11 from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Rule number 11 is titled, Don't Bother Children While They're Skateboarding. You can check out the song on YouTube too that somebody made. It's pretty good. This section to Don't Bother Children While They're Skateboarding is called Toughen Up You Weasel. Toughen up, you weasel. I spent one youthful summer on the prairie of central Saskatchewan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Actually, I probably am because I'm really good at pronunciation. Ha ha ha. Working on a railway line crew. Every man in this all-male group was tested by the others during the first 2 weeks or so of their hiring. Many of the other workers were Northern Cree Indians, quiet guys for the most part, easygoing until they drank too much and the chips on their shoulders started to show. They had been in and out of jail, as had most of their relatives. They didn't attend much shame to that, considering it just part of the white man's system. It was also warm in jail in the winter and the food was regular and plentiful. I lent one of the Cree guys $50 at one point. Instead of paying me back, he offered me a pair of bookends cut from some of the original rail laid across Western Canada, which I still own. That was better than $50. Bookends better than $50? I don't think so. Whatever gets you to sleep, Dr. J. Dr. P. When a new guy first showed up, the other workers would inevitably provide him with an insulting nickname. They called me Howdy Doody after I was accepted as a crew member, something I am still slightly embarrassed to admit. When I asked the originator why he chose that moniker, he said wittingly and absurdly, "Because you look nothing like him." Working men are often extremely funny in a caustic, biting, insulting manner, as discussed in rule number 9. They are always harassing each other, partly for amusement, partly to score points in the internal dominance battle between them, but also partly to see what the other guy will do if he's subjected to social stress. It's part of the process of character evaluation as well as camaraderie. When it works well, when everybody gets and gives as good as they get and can give and take, it's a big part of what allows men who work for a living to tolerate or even enjoy laying pipe and working on oil rigs and lumberjacking and working in restaurant kitchens and all the other hot, dirty, physically demanding, and dangerous work that is still done almost totally by men. I've had a lot of those jobs, and I didn't really enjoy that banter that goes on there. But too long after I started on the rail crew, my name was changed to Howdy. This was a great improvement, as it had a good Western connotation, and was not obviously linked to the stupid puppet. The next man hired was not so fortunate. He carried a fancy lunch bucket, which was a mistake, as brown paper bags for the proper, non-pretentious convention. It was a little too nice and too new. It looked like maybe his mother had bought it and packed it for him. Thus, it became his name. Lunch Bucket was not a good-humored guy. He bitched about everything and had a bad attitude. Everything was someone else's fault. He was touchy and not too quick on the draw. Lunch Bucket couldn't accept his name or settle into his job. He adopted an attitude of condescending irritation when addressed, and reacted to work in the same manner. He was not fun to be around and he couldn't take a joke. That's fatal on a work crew. After about 3 days of carrying on with his ill humor and general air of hard done by superiority, Lunch Bucket started to experience harassment extending well beyond his nickname. He would be peevishly working away on the line, surrounded by about 70 men spread out over a quarter mile. Suddenly a pebble would appear out of nowhere, flying through the air, aimed at his hard hat. A direct hit would produce a thunking sound, deeply satisfying to all the quietly attending onlookers. Even this failed to improve his humor, so the pebbles got larger. Lunch Bucket would involve himself in something and forget to pay attention. Then, thunk, a well-aimed stone would nail him on the noggin, producing a burst of irritated and ineffectual fury. Quiet amusement would ripple down the rail line. After a few days of this, no wiser and carrying a few bruises, Lunch Bucket vanished. Men enforce a code of behavior on each other when working together. Do you work, pull your weight, stay awake and pay attention? Don't whine or be touchy. Stand up for your friends. Don't suck up. Don't suck up and don't snitch. Don't be a slave to stupid rules. Don't, in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, be a girly man. Don't be dependent at all, ever, period. The harassment that is part of acceptance on a working crew is a test. You are tough, entertaining, competent, and reliable. If not, go away. Simple as that. We don't need to feel sorry for you. We don't want to put up with your narcissism, and we don't want to do your work. I always earned my respect on hard work crews of day labor. Right when I got there, they wouldn't believe me. They take one look at me and be like, "Oh, this guy can't work," you know. And then by the end of the day, I'd outwork all of them. And something I would say is if they doubted my working ability, I'd be like, "I'll do push-ups the whole time." I remember I went to this job here in Hawaii right when I moved here about 4 years ago, and it was in a warehouse, and I go in the warehouse and I get there and I have a positive attitude right when I get there first day on the job. I'm like, hey guys, my name's Greg. And then this like morbidly obese Filipino guy is like sitting on a chair. He's like 300, 400 pounds, all fat. And he looks at me up and down. He's like covered in sweat, like breathing hard, sitting, only one sitting. And he looks me up and down. He's like, you ever worked anywhere before? And then I was just like, have I ever worked anywhere before? Dude, I've been working since I was 14. Don't question me the second I get here. I told him that. I like almost exploded. I was like, don't question me right when I get here. Wait till the end of the day. I can outwork anybody here. I'll do push-ups the whole time, you know? And then that day, well, as the day went on, I was just talking smack. Like, after 8 hours, I was doing curls with we were unloading trucks. It's like, this is easy. What, you're tired? You're sweating that much? Okay, enough about me. Okay, men enforce a code of behavior on each other when working together. Okay, we're good then. There was a famous advertisement in the form of a comic strip issued a few decades ago by bodybuilder Charles Atlas. It was titled The Insult That Made a Man Out of Mac. It could be found in almost every comic book, which most were read by boys. I think I remember this. Mac, the protagonist, is sitting on a beach blanket with an attractive young woman. A bully runs by and kicks sand in both their faces. Mac objects. The much larger man grabs him by the arm and says, "Listen here, I'd smash your face, only you're so skinny you might dry up and blow away." The bully departs. Mac says to the girl, "The big bully? I'll get even someday." She adopts a provocative pose and says, "Oh, don't let it bother you, little boy." Mac goes home, considers his pathetic physique, and buys the Atlas program. Soon he has a new body. The next time he goes to the beach, he punches the bully in the nose. The now admiring girl clings to his arm. "Oh, Mac," she says, "you're a real man after all." That ad is famous for a reason. It summarizes human sexual psychology in 7 straightforward panels. The too weak young man is embarrassed and self-conscious, as he should be. What good is he? He gets put down by the other man, and worse, by desirable women. Instead of drowning in resentment and skulking off to his basement to play video games in his underwear covered with Cheetos dust, he presents himself with what Alfred Adler Freud's most practical colleague called a compensatory fantasy. The goal of such a fantasy is not so much wish fulfillment as illumination of a genuine path forward. Mac takes serious note of his scarecrow-like build and decides that he should develop a stronger body. More importantly, he puts his plan into action. He identifies with the part of himself that could transcend his current state and becomes the hero of his own adventure. He goes back to the beach and punches the bully in the nose. Mac wins. So does his eventual girlfriend. So does everybody else. It is to women's clear advantage that men do not happily put up with dependency among themselves. Part of the reason is that so many a working-class woman does not marry now, as we have alluded to, is because she does not want to look after a man struggling for employment as well as her children. And fair enough. A woman should look after her children, although that is not all she should do, and a man should look after a woman and children, although that is not all he should do. But a woman should not look after a man because she must look after children, and a man should not be a child. This means that he must not be dependent. This is one of the reasons that men have little patience for dependent men. And let us not forget, wicked women may produce dependent sons, may support and even marry dependent men, but awakened conscience women want an awakened conscience partner. It is for this reason that Nelson Muntz of The Simpsons is so necessary to the small social group that surrounds Homer's anti-hero son, Bart. Without Nelson, king of the bullies, the school would soon be overrun by resentful, touchy Millhouses, narcissistic, intellectual Martin Princes, soft, chocolate-gorging German children, and infantile Ralph Wiggums. Muntz is corrective, a tough, self-sufficient kid who uses his own capacity for contempt to decide what line of immature and pathetic behavior simply cannot be crossed. Part of the genius of The Simpsons is its writer's refusal to simply write Nelson off as an irredeemable bully. Abandoned by his worthless father, neglected, thankfully, by his thoughtless slut of a mother, Nelson does pretty well, everything considered. He's even of romantic interest to the thoroughly progressive Lisa, much to her dismay and confusion, for much of the same reasons that 50 Shades of Grey became a worldwide phenomenon. When softness and harmlessness becomes the only consciously acceptable virtues, the hardness and dominance will start to exert an unconscious fascination. Partly what that means for the future is that if men are pushed too hard to feminize, They will become more and more interested in harsh, fascist political ideology. Fight Club, perhaps the most fascist popular film made in recent years by Hollywood, with the possible exception of the Iron Man series, provides a perfect example of such inevitable attraction. The populist groundswell of support for Donald Trump in the U.S. is part of the same process, as is, in far more sinister form, the recent rise of far-right political parties, even in such moderate and liberal places as Holland, Sweden, and Norway. Men have to toughen up. Men demand it. Women want it, even though they may not approve of the harsh and contemptuous attitude that is part and parcel of the socially demanding process that fosters and that enforces that toughness. Some women don't like losing their baby boys, so they keep them forever. Some women don't like men and would rather have a submissive mate, even if he is useless. This also provides them with plenty to feel sorry for themselves about as well. The pleasures of such self-pity should not be underestimated. Men toughen up by pushing themselves and by pushing each other. When I was a teenager, the boys were much more likely to get into car accidents than the girls, and they still are. This was because they were out spinning donuts at night in icy parking lots. They were drag racing and driving their cars over the roadless hills extending from the nearby river up to level land hundreds of feet higher. They were more likely to fight physically and to skip class and to tell the teachers off and to quit school because they were tired of raising their hands for permission to go to the bathroom when they were big and strong enough to work the oil rigs. They were more likely to race their motorbikes on frozen lakes in the winter. Like the skateboarders and crane climbers and free runners, they were doing dangerous things, trying to make themselves useful. When this process goes too far, boys and men drift into the antisocial behavior which is far too prevalent in males than in females. That does not mean that every manifestation of daring and courage is criminal. When the boys were spinning donuts, they were also testing the limits of their cars, their ability as drivers, and their capacity for control in and out of control situations. When they told off the teachers, they were pushing against authority to see if there was any real authority there, the kind that could be relied on in principle in a crisis. When they quit school, they went to work as rig roughnecks when it was 40 below zero. It wasn't weakness that propelled so many of them out of the classroom, where a better future arguably waited. It was strength. If they're healthy, women don't want boys, they want men. They want someone to contend with, someone to grapple with. If they're tough, they want someone tougher. If they're smart, they want someone smarter. Their desire who brings to the table something they can't already provide. This often makes it hard for tough, smart, attractive women to find mates. There just aren't that many men around who can outclass them enough to be considered desirable, who are higher, as one research publication put it, in income, education, self-confidence, intelligence, dominance, and social position. The spirit that interferes when boys are trying to become men is, therefore, no more friend to women than it is to men. It will object just as voicefully and self-righteously. You can't do it. It's too dangerous. When little girls try to stand on their own 2 feet, it negates consciousness. It's anti-human, desirous of failure, jealous, resentful, and destructive. No one truly on that side of humanity would ally him or herself with such a thing. No one aiming at moving up would allow him or herself to become possessed by such a thing. And if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. Leave children alone when they are skateboarding. That was rule number 11 from Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. My name is Gregory Brandt. If you haven't already, click the thumbs up button. More importantly, hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow this channel, make it better. Maybe I'll get a screen in the background and we can play things in the background as I'm reading these videos. So thanks again for watching, and have a nice day.